We got a fun class today, I think. First thing I'm going to ask y'all to do, well, let me set the example for you. So, I've been using analogies with roads and our joints. And our joints are articulations that rotate. Some of them have general motion, like our elbow has general motion. Some of it is rotation, but some of it is translation. My arm is going down to the left, up and to the right. And then some are more pure rotation, like rotating your head or your hip. And those joint motions will literally have rotation in their name because it's more pure. It's not general. I give the analogy, if I had 50-pound dumbbells, I can do this with it, but I'm not going to do this with it. That's the linear aspect of the general motion. So for this skateboard, we have pure rotation, and that wheel can constantly spin in that one direction of the road forever. It doesn't have to go back. Okay? So when we use these analogies of roads like I-49, they're limited. They have ends. The road would literally have to wrap around the earth for you to be able to keep going in the same direction over and over and over again. So it's the same with our joints. Our joints have ends to their road. We call that range of motion. How far west does I-10 go? How far east does I-10 go? And so what I want to apply right now before we get into that lecture is a common illusion where sometimes it looks like our joints can continuously go on and on and on. But we're gonna show you how it's an illusion. So everybody take your phone or your keys or something and stand up. And we're gonna do this quick little practical fun illusion. I'm gonna hold this cup of you just stop watering down my rum. Palm up with your phone. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We are going to do a continuous circle where you're going to bring it in. Oh my God. Oh. Sorry, guys. I had it really full. It was a busy morning. So instead of being a dumb head reindeer, I retired that phrase. My niece called my other niece a doo-doo head reindeer when they were kids. It was awesome. And so I was like, you shouldn't do that. So to honor her, I'll still use the word doo-doo. All right, so here's the point. Notice how if we move our bodies, we can have a continuous circle. Look, I can relate, but at least you get wet. At least you didn't get wet. The small sacrifices I make for the point. Does everybody see what I'm saying? So in other words, we're making a continuous global circle as we go around. But these motions are actually internal rotation. Then we're going to pronate our radial ulnar joint. Then we're going to bring it up. And then we're going to have external rotation with supination of our radial ulnar joint. And then we're kind of back to where we started. Internal with pro, shoulder, trunk, bring it up. External with sup. So again, even though it may seem, or y'all may have seen this one, it's like, wow, I didn't know the shoulder could literally just keep spinning like a tire. And it's like, no, it can't. You're gradually, it's like, does anybody know what an Etch-a-Sketch is? The little thing, there's two knobs, right? Well, if you just move one knob, it's going to just go up and down, and the other knob left and right. But if you move both, you can keep doing circles. And so it's very similar, where you have these combinational patterns to make it look like it's going around and around and around. Okay? Y'all maybe see. So on Moodle, I posted I'll get sounds I do in memory of people or in honor of people, and that's one of them. When I was maybe 12 years old, I went to a nursing home to visit my great aunt, Aunt Ava, and she couldn't see and she didn't hear, but she was really funny. And we were watching TV, and this lady wheeled her chair next to us while we were watching, and I was being nice. I was like, ma'am, do you want me to change it to something you want to watch? So my aunt was blind. She couldn't see. And the lady looked at me and did. I was a kid, and I freaked out. I was just like, sorry, gotta go. And then I felt bad years later, and I was like, she was probably just wanting to talk. And I freaked out, and I feel bad. So I still keep her in my heart to this day and in my prayers by every now and then going, that's my life. So check this out, guys. So we know that all of our joints have ranges of motion. However, two things. When you see things like flexion, normal range of motion, 110 to 120. Extension, 10 to 15. This is where things should start clicking for all of us. 100 miles from where? Starting where? Anatomical position, right? So that's why anatomical is such an important position, because it's 100 to 110 from our starting point. And then it's 10 to 15 from our starting point. Now, you can combine those two and basically say, well, how long is our road total? Total range of motion. So in other words, from all the way east to all the way west, the road is this long. But anatomical position, our start, our Lafayette, is how far does the road go this way? How far does the road go that way? With these numbers, so you can apply it to all of the different joints that we're going to have. What's normal? From to. The issue with young clinicians is we cheat a lot. And I'm not talking about like cheating on a test. I'm talking about subconsciously, our bodies don't know the difference between local and global references. Giving you an example, if I was testing Ken's range of motion, and I said, okay, Ken, bring your leg back. 10 to 15 degrees is not a lot of motion. And so what Ken might do is say, well, I'm going to bring my leg back, but I'm going to bring it way back. and literally move at another joint to make the hip go back further globally, when we need to see local. We need to see that 10 to 15, not all of a sudden that magical 45 to 50. That's hard for us to do without practice. Okay? That's hard for us to do without practice. How many times have you ever worked out with a friend and you catch them cheating on an exercise? It's not that they're like, I'm gonna get over today on the night. It's just sometimes you don't even notice. You see someone maybe doing curls and they're struggling, or maybe they're not struggling, maybe they have too much weight, maybe they don't have enough weight, or they don't. And instead of just using the elbow motion, which you're trying to do, maybe they start using some. And their brains are like, well, I'm getting it up, but not at the place they want to make the motion happen, just as an example, okay? So on the test, Grace, do you remember this one where I gave the curl example? Did you have that on your test? It's hard to remember, huh? But I literally give a question where the elbows are like at 90 degrees here, and then at 90 degrees here. Like the elbows have no change. And the majority of people will say that's flexion of the elbows. Just because our brains want to say, well, it went up, why wouldn't it be the elbows? Notice, okay? So what I'd like to do right now to show you guys the importance of relative motion to range of motion position. First of all, does that make sense? Like if you look at a chart and it says, you're looking at range of motion of the wrist, or you're taking motion assessment of the wrist, and it says the wrist has 45 degrees of extension. That means from anatomical position, you should be able to extend 45 degrees. It has 45 degrees, I'm just using it as a note, sometimes there's some play off of this, 45 degrees of flexion from anatomical. That's why anatomical position is so important. So many degrees of ulnar deviation, so many degrees of radial deviation. And then the total range of motion is just, well, how many miles can I go this way? How many miles can I go that way? And the sum of that is a full. All right, Grace. Let's show them some illusions with ranges of motion. Give it up for Grace. Anybody familiar with National Lampoon Christmas Vacation?
Yes.
You get that a lot, huh? Grace, the blessing. Lay down first. We're gonna go to. Yeah, get some. Yes. And I'm not the only person that says tummy. Yeah. Nobody else says tummy. It's a Delphin thing. I also like my second favorite movie is Coming to America. Anyway. He's like, taste the soup. He's like, why I gotta taste the soup? He's like, just taste the soup. He's like, where's the spoon? Aha! Aha! All right. Here we go. So if we were going to do an assessment of hip internal and external rotation, I'm just giving you an example. The hip should rotate, anywhere between 35, 45 degrees. But I need to see that rotation relative to her hip socket, not relative to the room. That's the lesson here. So in other words, if I say, okay, Grace, I'm going to internally rotate your hip. Don't freak out. I'm going to teach you the illusion of why that's really internal, even though it looks like it's going external. We're going to get to that in the next unit. This is the end of her range of motion. I know that because I see her pelvis starting to cheat. Pelvis where the sockets are. But if I wasn't looking for that, and Grace is just like, well, he's trying to get my foot down, so I'm going to make my foot go further down. Does everybody see what I'm talking about? And so all of a sudden you're like, whoa, look at all of that range of motion. When in reality, some of it happened at her left hip, and some of that motion literally happened from her rotating her whole pelvis. You see what I'm getting at? You did great. What did you say? The technical term, stomach. Say stomach. Could you feel that though? You could feel. Pelvis. Absolutely. Your pelvis is like, I can help. It's not that, and again, when I say cheat, I don't demean it. It's just her body is like, oh, my foot's trying to go down. What can I do to help? And the pelvis is like, I got you. I can totally rotate and help get the foot lower to the ground. That messes with us when we're trying to do a proper, accurate assessment of range of motion. So we have to know these limitations and we have to keep it local. So like if we were doing a stretch or a range of motion assessment, I would make sure on my athletes to keep that pelvis down or watch that pelvis. And as soon as that pelvis starts to rock, the cheat, bang, that's my range of motion. I'll pass it. So thank you, Grace. Grace is going to come up at the end and do some practice examples. Okay. So does everybody understand how range of motion will work? Now, this is where the hyper gets misconstrued. Hyper is just excessive, beyond. Hyperactive person, or hyperventilation, or hypertension. And there's hypo, right? So hyper just means beyond a normal range of motion. Is anybody hypermobile in here? Maybe you have like hypermobility of your joints. It's normal for you, but it's not normal for large numbers. So in other words, if somebody can take their thumb and bend it to touch their forearm, has anybody ever seen someone do that? It's really cool. Cool party trick. I can't do it. That's hypermobile because that's not within normal limits of the average person. But for them, do it. Okay. So hyperextension of, let's say, the elbow or the knee is just in anatomical position. You're at the end of that road. Just as a reminder, you're at the end of the road. You can't go any further. So beyond that normal end of the road is hyper. But just because the elbow and the knee are at the end of their road in anatomical doesn't mean other joints are the same. So what happens is we have common injuries to knees and elbows because they're the articulation of the two longest bones of the body. It's easy to snap a long twig than it is a small, short twig. Make sense? So because we have a lot of hyperextension injuries, then our brains say, well, then everything that extends from anatomical must be hyper. No. That's normal range of motion for my wrist extension. That's not hyper. You know what hyperextension of my wrist would be? But I could also have hyperflexion. So normal range of motion when we put out these numbers, it's from anatomy. Have this many degrees of flexion from, have this many degrees of extension from, that the total would just be this plus that. Cool? Any questions, clarifications? All right, now what I'd like to do is let's go through. We're going to cross some I's and dot some T's. Bless you. Because y'all got a test next week. And so the plan of action is we're going to be done with material, new material. We're almost done with it anyway, but I just want to make sure we clarify and get all of our. And then Friday, Grace and Emma are going to hold a class review. So in other words, maybe someone can't come to the review that's planned. Well, you already have your schedule locked off for Friday morning at 7:30. So Friday morning will be like a lab day where you guys come in, do some practice, clarify some things, and then Monday will be a general review, just making sure we're on the same page. That's how much I look at everything in sports. The reason you have a walkthrough, the reason, at the beginning of the week in football, you do your hard stuff and then you taper off before your game. That's what this is. I don't want to bombard you with a bunch of stuff right before game day, right? So we're tapering off, we're making sure we're on the same page, making sure all of our questions are answered, because I want everybody, I have a good feeling about this class. I think we're going to have the best scores we've ever had. No pressure. No pressure. So guys, let's do this together. We're going to go through, and I just want to make sure there's nothing I missed or there's no clarifications. Rotation versus translation. Remember, pure rotation, pure translation, general motion is a combination of both, guys. That's what happens in most movements is general. It's made up of both. For our joints, even though we have general motion, we communicate the motion from the spin because the spin is the only thing that will be consistent. The linearity won't. My arm is going away from my midline. Gosh, it's coming back. But the spin was the same. Make sense? So we look at it from the rotation, not the translation, even though translations may happen. Translations are actually trying to mess with us. We're used to that. We're used to straight line motion. That's why you guys are going to be really good practitioners, because you know not to fall for the translational distractions. I thought of this analogy when we were doing the when Grace was on her stomach. Did I say it right? I'm still going to say tummy because it just makes me giggle. So this is what happened if you couldn't see it. Let's say Grace's the clock hand represents Grace's lower leg, and this represents the hip. You've got to use a little imagination, but we're looking at it from the back, and her foot, I'm rotating it like this. So this is what happened. I said, okay, Grace, I'm going to internally rotate you. This is all hip. And then once she reached the end of the range of motion, her pelvis started to contract. And here's the key. The rotation was the same, but we had no motion happening at the things that articulate the hip. Does that make sense? So that's what we need to be aware of. We need to be aware that if we're assessing range of motion or motion, it has to be here and not fall for, because that's still staying on 12 o'clock. So guys, we're just going through for the people watching from home at work. City Bar, I don't judge, I don't know where you watch the videos. We are on page 15 right now, we're at the clock. And again, stop me at any time as we go through this. Hey, could you repeat that again? Hey, I know we talked about this, but I'm not quite sure what. And if you're too shy to do it, no problem. Tell Grace. She'll tell me. Y'all have, what's that blue book? What do you call it? Was that app where everybody could talk? No, not Twitter. Ruby. I'm a caveman, y'all. And send her a group me and be like, hey, can you ask about this? Do we understand the illusions? Right? There's 4 kinds of motions. 2 of them are simple. It looks like it's moving and it is. It looks like it's not moving and it's not. That'd be great questions. What happened at the right shoulder? And then the 2 hard ones. It looks like it's moving, but it's not. That's this example with his right hip. This is on page 16. Right? It looks like it's extending. Well, you were taught extension is when leg go back. Not necessarily. His hip did this. So it's still on the same number. There was no hip motion. The ball and the socket both spun the same. So the hip didn't move. His left hip moved, but not his right. So it looks like it's moving, but it's not. Other examples of these illusions. Just because I look to my left doesn't mean I turn my neck. So we don't want to learn things like when you look to the left, it's left transverse cervical rotation. When you look to the right, I could look to the right because of my trunk. I could look to my right because of hips. I can look to the right because of different things, not necessarily one day. Okay. It looks like it's moving, but it's not. The other one is it looks like it's not moving, and it is. So that would be his left hip for that illusion. Because again, if all you ever were taught is to use a hammer, what's going to happen when your problem isn't a nail? So if all you've been taught is it looks like it's moving and it is, yay, that's awesome. I need to teach you that it's actually moving even though it doesn't look like it's moving. Left hip flexion. Because my new position is the exact same position as I would be here. That makes sense? You're going to have some of those questions on the test. However, only sagittal plane. Only flexion and extension. That's why I do that. So that we can practice these things with training wheels on. And then unit 2, we're kicking the training wheels off and we're rolling. That's my compromise. Cool? Keeping on, what about planes and axes? So remember, planes and axes, how you guys were taught is for these pictures, it's only relative to the rotation of the entire human. So in other words, the person can rotate about an anterior-posterior axis if the whole person was possessed by Annabelle and started spinning in the frontal plane. I'm not advocating for that in Annabelle. No, I love you. Or like say a cartwheel. A cartwheel would be like general motion because you shift to the right or shift to the left, but the spin would be frontal about an AP. A polar would be like if you asked a kid to spin to the right or spin to the left. Be transverse about the polar, the person. And then bilateral sagittal would be like doing a front roll, back roll, or a back flip, front flip. I would totally do that for you guys right now, but I promised my children I wouldn't show off. So that's why I'm not going to do a backflip. Is that fair? Dude, my 18-year-old, I'm so into his head right now. They have we have a $100 bill the day they could beat me in a race, and you can tell it's chomping at him. It's like, I want to do it. I don't want you to get hurt. Dude, I'm old, and I'm overweight. I'm way past my proof. Let's do it. So, kids are so fun. All right, why is this confusing? Because they don't take the next step. And Snow White could be a 10-page children's book, or it could be a 3-hour epic movie. So it's not that this is wrong. It's just they don't take the next step and say, hey, these planes and axes can apply to specific joints in the body. That's all it is. That my elbow can have a bilateral axis and do front and back rolls, or my shoulder can have a bilateral axis.
Or like a cartwheel, is that rotating like to the movement more than?
So what a great question. So that's why we communicate perspectives, right? That's why we have global or absolute perspectives where the planes and axes don't shift, don't move. So if I was going to say, from a global reference of this room, what plane is my cartwheel taking place in? We would all say frontal. But if I did my cartwheel like this, and I said from a global reference, from the room's perspective, we would all say sagittal. But if I said, how am I doing the cartwheel from my perspective, it would be my frontal. And this would still be my frontal. So that's the difference. And on the test, I'm going to communicate which perspective I'm asking. Just know that the room's fixed. This will always be the front and the back of the class. Anterior, posterior axis, frontal plane spin. Those, although, I don't know who designed this room. I have ideas. But there's no flat sides, but we know these are the sides of the classroom. Bilateral axis. The top and bottom, polar axis. But that doesn't mean my perspective has to match up with it, right? So in other words, if I was doing, do you guys know what snow angels are? Okay, we were doing those this early winter, huh? It's crazy stuff. So for an example, Grace, if I can't get up, I don't know what my son has to fear. I can barely get up off the ground. All right, I'm not going to lay on my stomach. I'm going to lay on my back. Kelly Clarkson. Perspective. Was that transverse or frontal? It depends, right? That's what I want to get you to see. From the room's perspective, absolutely, well done. So the room's transverse. Because the axes from the rooms are top to bottom. Transverse plane. From my perspective, though, even though the room is going through my shoulder top to bottom, this is still the front of my shoulder and the back of my shoulder. This is still anterior, posterior to me. So therefore, this is frontal plane for me. Both of those can be correct as long as we communicate the perspective. And it's important to know these perspectives because for a few reasons. One, I think it's going to help us to fall for less traps, understanding that, the Grace's foot is moving relative to the room, but that doesn't make hip motion. So it's important to have a global reference. And you may be communicating with your players, your patients globally, because they won't know what that stuff is. So, it's okay to be like, okay, Mrs. Johnson, lift it up, go to the left, go to the right. There's nothing wrong with it. But we have to know what's happening inside of the engine so that we can be good biomechanics. Great question. Thank you for asking that. Any other clarifications on planes and axes? Guys, if I common miss stuff, Grace, please jump in anytime. If I ask you for a plane, give me a plane. If I ask you for an axis, give me an axis. I can't help it if I ask you for an axis and you say frontal. Sorry. And that happens because your brain, I have dyslexia, so I get it. But that's why I give you scratch paper, like to kind of slow yourself down. Highlight, underline, write. Okay, he's asking for an axis. What are my three options? Bilateral, AP, polar. None of these answers have that. Like there's techniques and ways we can slow ourselves down to make sure we don't speed. And in this analogy, getting a speeding ticket is missing a question that you should have got right. Okay. All right, Grace, how about we do some practice? You got a few that think about? Come on, I'm gonna let Grace take over, and she's gonna do some practice motions and positions with you guys. And I'm gonna take a break. You're here. Sit whatever's left of my drink that I spilled earlier.
All right, we're gonna start out pretty simple, pretty easy. But yeah, so this is the starting position, and then this is ending. So
Remember, we need to get consistent with side or sides. If it's the right, say right. If it's the left, say left. If it's both, we can say right and left, or we can say bilateral both sides. You communicate the joint, the side, the joint, and then the motion. Start, finish. 10 seconds. Go. Grace, do I allow them to move during the test?
oh yeah, absolutely.
Do people take advantage of that?
So
So what I mean by that, if you want to move, maybe for the test, you strategically go to one of the ends of the tables so that you have room to move. Or do what I do. Don't care what people think. I don't care. Fine. All right, side, right, left, or bilateral? Bilateral. Good. Joint, elbow, shoulder, wrist. Outstanding. The elbow can only do two things for this test. It can either flex or extend. I don't teach you angles because this might be front, but when Grace did it, that's in the back. It's a good example. So is it going more into fetal or away from fetal? What was that? Flexion. Bilateral elbow flexion. When she came back up, bilateral elbow extension. Going back home. Going back to anatomy. Any questions or clarifications on that one? No. Very good. Next one, I'm going to let you explain. I just can't help it. I like teaching.
if someone can't see, just I can. This is the starting position. This is the ending position.
Reminder, the best way for my students, I don't want you to have to guess. I want you to be able to solve. I want you to be able to know for a fact. So that's why we preach position change is the same as motion. So when Grace started, take note. Where is she at? Move. Where is she at now? How did she have to move to go there again? I'll let you explain. It's early going. It's a catch-22. We want to give time for assessment, but we also want to give as many examples as we can. Okay. All right, Grace, I'll let you explain.
All right. So what was the first position?
Extension.
Then
I know I'm being nitpicky. Right. Position. And this is important. I know exactly what you meant. But we need to get in the habit so that on the test, if I ask for a position, you don't give a motion. And I don't mean emotion. A motion. I know exactly what you meant, and you were right. But it's one of those things that's so embedded in our brains to just play back and forth with it. You can be east of Lafayette, but be traveling west.
and then the final position.
Flex.
So what motion was observed?
Flexion. And if we're going to be super specific, what side? Right. What joint?
Right.
And the motion? Yes. Side joint motion. And on the test, we may do something like this. We can't assume they're going to do the same thing. And so that's why we have to break it down by side, because I can't just say, oh, that was wrist extension and wrist flexion. I'll be like, oh, which one did which? That makes sense? Got another one?
Yes. This is hard, isn't it? Okay. This is the start position, and then this is the end position. So I want you to look at the shoulders.
Ooh, good one.
So this is the start, and this is the end.
So help me clarify. Grace is saying there's a lot of stuff happening. I only want you to assess what's happening in the shoulders. We analyze motion joint by joint. Everything else is a distraction. In addition, I want to make sure we're in sagittal plane. One, I'm not going to ask you about ab and abduction. I've told you that. Like that. This is just sagittal stuff. So just as a reminder, well, when I do it, this isn't about how you do it. This is about what we saw her do. Sagittal plane, shoulder, start to finish. It's a really good example. Really good example. Does anybody need to see it one more time?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, sure. Can come on. Well, I'll do it on both.
I'm going to get you a tip cut.
This is the start, and this is the end.
It's really good. Now I know why I've never done it. It's one of this. You need to count that more towards the Turkish thing. All right, that's it. That's rewind for you.
Yes.
All right, Grace.
Okay. So what was the position to start?
Extended.
Bilateral shoulder extended. And then the final position was bilateral shoulder flex. Perfect. And then so the motion observed.
Flexion. Guys, I'm telling you, the process, taking it step by step, is going to help us get consistent right answers, and it's going to help us to not fall for illusions. A lot of illusions. I've worked with, and it's not their fault. Me being a dyslexic, I see visually. That's my X-Man mutant power. My kryptonite is I can't spell X-Man. But this stuff is hard. I have major professors that I still love to this day that struggle with hip rotation with pelvis because our brains want to take us to a place. So it's good to have a process. It's good to take it step by step. I want to jump in with one, if you don't mind. I'll let you explain it. Start. I'll do it like this. Start. Finish. Start. Finish. Start. Finish. Go. Right hand went up, left hand went down. Oh, Ryan, shut up. That was supposed to be part of the question. Forget I said that. Like Men in Black. Look at the light. Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Start was like arms out in front of me. And then I did this. I wanted to work in some reminding you about size. All right, Grace, I'll let you explain it.
Okay, so the starting position was
Flex.
Final.
Bilateral shoulder.
Okay, and then we'll do the right arm first. So right arm did this. What's the end position?
Right shoulder is flex.
Shoulder flex, right?
Okay. So the motion observed was
Right shoulder.
right shoulder flexion. Yes. And then for the left arm, the position was
Flex.
flex. And then we observed, or the ending position was left shoulder extended. So the motion observed was left shoulder. Perfect.
Just a little bit, this is how I apply my autism. So I'm going to be very nitpicky. When we go back to anatomical, the shoulder doesn't play the same game as the elbow. So it is better verbiage to say we started flexed and we went back to anatomical, because I can have extension from here. That's not hyper. Okay, so it's small, it doesn't change the answer, but just, I'm a repetitive teacher, so just want to be specific. I went from a flex position. Does everybody understand that it's okay that both positions were flexed? I just went more. Like I was at 90 miles east of Lafayette, and now I'm 180 miles east of Lafayette, so I had to travel east to get further away. That's what that is. All right, we got one more?
Oh, yeah. So we're going to be observing the right hip. So this is going to be the start, and then this is the.
Very good.
So this is the start.
Oh my God. Welcome to my worship. It's good. I know your instinct is to not move in class because most of your professors are like, sit down and be quiet. But you can move. You can literally get up and try. I mean, this is lab. Like you're free to move about and hey Grace, come over. I just want to make sure I'm starting in the right position, because sometimes feeling it, sometimes doing it, you're like, oh, okay, I see why. I'm not forcing you. I'm just saying it helps. We have very
Your left right now, this was it's better. Yes. Because into your left. That's important. Well, same as not, so is this, is out right there. First, right, cities. Yeah.
Fat ball with you. Permanent unit class. It's going to be like converting oxygen to carbon dioxide. Look at the laziest.
Well, balance is just.
Has today been helpful?
Because this.
All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and answer it, so that way we have a few minutes in case anybody wants to talk to Grace and I. So, actually, she's back.
Okay, so what is the first position?
Good.
Yes.
Remember, we're not going to ask you, it's flexed 1 degree. We're not going to do that to you. It's relatively straight anatomical.
And then the final position was here, so that's.
So the only way to go from anatomical to being flexed is to have outstanding. Bonus points. What's the left hip doing? Start. Yes. Yes. So it had to have. Isn't this cool? It is. Like no more confusion. And it's just about practice. It's just reps. Like I always say, the best way to get better, make it just a shoe free move. Gotta get reps. Lucky for us, we could get reps if we're awake. You're cooking, analyze your motion. You're exercising, analyze your motion. Other people are exercising. Pop a box of popcorn, sit in a chair, watch them work out. Don't do that. It'll get you arrested. Y'all have a good one, guys. We'll see you Friday.